Good evening and welcome to I'm Listening Live. I'm Listening is a 24/7, 365 initiative that works to both destigmatize mental health and also let you know that we're here and we're listening. For anyone that needs some extra resources, we'll put some up on after the show. And tonight we got a great show planned for you. Dr. Milo Dodson will be here talking about how to deal with the election results, as well as Jay Rodriguez talking about his new project on HBO and the importance of visibility. Now, I wanted to open up by saying, listen, we are in unprecedented times, regardless of how you feel about the election. Everyone's having all sorts of feelings about the outcome, how everyone's responding in the middle, of course, of a pandemic when we're dealing with our own anxieties about finances, employment, and health. So the first thing I want to remind everyone is prioritize and center your mental health. If you're feeling burnt out or overloaded, set some boundaries, say no to a few things, but more importantly, take a break from all the media. You're going to see a lot of possibly triggering responses and commentary on the election. Also, stay connected to your community. Stay connected to those that you feel cared for and supported by. That's going to be a really important part of keeping our mental health robust through everything that's happening. Also, make sure you're getting your basic needs met. I know it sounds silly, but for some of us, when we're really stressed, anxious, or we're feeling hopeless or helpless, we're not focusing on eating and getting enough sleep. And finally, take some action. Regardless of your thoughts on the election, there's still so much change needed to happen. So get involved on the local level or on a larger level in some form of activism. That's how we feel empowered and in control. All right, now let's go to our first guest, Dr. Milo Dodson. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me as always.
Always a pleasure to see you. I want to start by just throwing some stats out there. 78% of people right now have stress about the future, generalized anxiety, a lot going on. 68% have stress right now based on our political climate. So a lot of intersecting things happening right now. So what do we want to think about when we're trying to accept and manage basically the outcome of the election?
Well, above anything and everything else, I really want folks to feel validated and encouraged of having a full range of emotions. I think I saw a meme recently that said, we're in the United States of anxiety for the USA there. And it's so real because whatever our political affiliation or however we voted, there's a lot of angst and uncertainty in terms of the rest of 2020 and the next 4 years. So I really just want folks to be validated and encouraged around however they're feeling, even if that's excitement or anger.
I love that. Beautifully said. We don't want people kind of stuffing how they're feeling, express it. And also, I think there's some things that occur and you can lovingly, sometimes patronizingly say things like, it'll be okay, we'll get through this. But I think there's some periods where you can't necessarily say that because maybe things aren't going to be okay.
No, and that's the thing, because we want to be able to be kind and we want to be able to encourage folks. But to be kind and encouraging is actually encouraging folks to feel how they're feeling in that moment. So if they're angry, then really validating, you know what, it's okay that you're angry right now. If you're sad, it's okay that you're sad right now. And not try to make it be more about a future emotion, but really normalize how they're feeling in the present in that moment.
And also just, we in our culture will shame certain emotions. So I love your sense of this validation. But also, how about the mobilizing and empowering force that anger can be? Talk to that a little bit. That anger can sometimes, make us feel empowered and drive us forward.
Yeah, because the reality is anger can be a motivating factor. I mean, a lot of times I think about anger kind of being the bodyguard of sadness. So we want to really, really dig into what's behind that anger. But at the same time, there's a lot of validity because for a lot of folks, especially in marginalized communities, we have a lot to be angry about. And that's okay. We want to make sure that we're using that anger to serve ourselves and use it as a motivating factor, like I said.
Yeah, because regardless of how the election went and whether or not the candidate that you wanted was elected, I also want to remind people, still take action. There's still so much change that needs to happen. And the president that you wanted maybe not winning doesn't mean that we should stop pushing forward to the changes that need to be made.
No, and that's exactly it, because, and I'm glad you're actually saying taking action, because I like to use the acronym of ACT. So you have A for awareness and acknowledgement in terms of how we're feeling. We have C for compassion and connect, making sure that we're being kind to ourselves and in our connections to others. And honestly, T just stands for treat yourself. So whether that's ice cream for me or in a very real sense, T can also stand for therapy. So, in all seriousness, a lot of folks, because we may feel sad about how the election turned out, we want to have that professional support. So, in addition to treating yourself, you can treat yourself and make that phone call to start therapy.
Beautifully said. Dr. Milo Dodson, as always, thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Thanks always for having me. Take care of yourself, brother.
Have a great night. Be well. Great message. Regardless of how you feel about the election, still so much change that needs to come. So we have to still stay in the game, especially when we're fighting for the rights of exploited and marginalized individuals. And now let's go to our next guest, Jay Rodriguez, original Queer Eye, star of Rent, former host of The Morning Beat on Channel Q, and a various list of other accomplishments. Welcome back to the show, Jay.
Thanks for having me. It's been a minute. I've gotten a haircut since the last time we've chatted.
You also somehow look younger than last time we chatted. You're aging backwards.
I did. I revisited my angel costume in Rent, so that required shaving on Saturday. So, just kind of went live as that character. It was kind of fun. But now I'm living with the face of a toddler, and it's not great.
Well, it'll get you some dates, just maybe not the kind you want. Now, congratulations, HBO Max Equal. Let's tell us about the show and the role that you're playing on it.
Yeah, so it's a 4-part miniseries on HBO Max, which, by the way, if people who don't have that can download the app for free for a week for a trial. So go ahead and just do that so you can watch it. And it's basically a almost like a documentary, but with reenactments of actual people who are actors that we know and recognize, who are trailblazers in their own right in the community. But this goes back to even the late 50s and 1960s. I know we talk a lot about Stonewall as being sort of the beginning of the LGBTQ rights, civil rights movement, but it really spanned much earlier. And so this series kind of highlights those unsung heroes. And these stories are told many times in their own words. It's actually their audio. Many of us play them. I play Jose Sadia, who is the first out gay person to run for office, did not get elected, but used his platform as a cabaret star and drag entertainer in San Francisco to not only ignite his audiences to get more politically engaged, but also kind of read them here and there. He really didn't have any sense of duality when it came to performer and being civic minded. He merged them all into one, which is a beautiful thing at the time, because and bold and progressive, because it was actually illegal to dress in drag in 1960. You must have always had 2 articles of men's clothing on at all times.
And not everyone knows that. People were literally rounded up and thrown in jail for dressing up in drag. Yeah.
But Jose was so clever. He made them wear, when the police would come raid the bars, he would have these name tags and he'd make them wear them around his neck saying, "I'm a boy," because they were being arrested for allegedly impersonation, of another gender. So he's like, you're not fooling anyone. I have the sign here. They found ways around it, but he would end every one of their sessions, every one of their evenings with "God Save Us, Nelly Queens," which I get to sing in the show. And when people from that era talk about it now, which there's a lot of that footage in this, it brings tears to their eyes, and they all remember it in such a profound way. And I think what this show does, Equal on HBO Max, it gives us a greater sense of pride that the work that we're seeing done now stems back decades and decades of people. And if you see the show is so timely. There's a lot of the same cries, the same pleas, the same fight song is a lot of the same language that we're seeing here today on the streets and for people crying out for justice.
So is it heartwarming to harken back and see how far we've come? Or is it the opposite, where you're saying, wow, we're still fighting for some of the same things?
Well, I'm excited for you to see it. I think there's a bunch of people that'll even inspire you and the work that you do. Because I know for me, it's inspiring in the sense that I'm excited for the youth of this world to understand a culture within the LGBTQ community that spans before Drag Race, where a lot of kids, grew up in a world where they saw the White House lit up in rainbow colors when President Obama was in office, and they had marriage equality. And so now when these things are under attack, for a lot of people, they don't understand how long the fight went on. And to be honest, growing up, I would have felt so empowered knowing that there was this Latinx queer drag entertainer who was navigating their life with a sense of bravery that I could only wish to have an ounce of myself.
100%. So talk more about that though. Visibility and representation. How important do you think that is now? I mean, I love that we're bringing history forward, because I think a lot of the current generation, and mine as well, don't know a lot about history of movements, especially the queer movement.
Where would we have learned?
That's right.
Like, where would we have learned? And I think, if you were lucky enough to go to a college or have additional schooling, then maybe that would have been, or if you are an avid reader, you can certainly pick up a book and discover our history. But in so many instances, these things have been buried. And I don't like to erase our history, because then it helps us repeat some of the same, mistakes that, not even mistakes that we made, but the oppression that was put on us in the same language. It's great to actually witness and relive those moments, because for me, I got to chat with Jose Sadia, actually established the Imperial Court, which has over 70 chapters worldwide. It's a large LGBTQ plus fundraising organization, and his legacy is great within that community. They call him Queen Mother, and I got to speak to his successor, who was floored that this story was finally being told. And I'm thankful just to have the small part of this, because these HBO Max is brand new, so we got paid like a free lunch and some bus fare. But I'm kidding, but not really. But it was a passion. It was a passion project. When we talk about representation and visibility, oftentimes people say, well, they're making this show or that show, but it's very rare that these storytellers are actually LGBTQ who are behind the scenes and in power positions. And so it's really important that I think, and I love that Equal did that. We have a very diverse crew. We had LGBTQ plus folks on camera and behind the scenes. Wow. And I think, coming from a place of authenticity is the best way to tell a story.
Bam. Beautifully said. And just from a mental health perspective, so important to see who you are, all your different identities reflected back to you. And I think we don't always take that into account. And so I have to imagine a lot of people are going to watch this show, Equal on HBO Max, see you and be more aware of just what's possible.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we talk about it all the time. I remember years ago when you were, getting your PhD, and we'd go out somewhere and people would instantly assume, if it was warm out and you're wearing a t-shirt because you have tattoos, oh, is he a bartender? Is he a personal trainer? Right. And it was because they hadn't seen someone that looked like you reflected in the work that you do. And I think sometimes when you can see it, you believe you can be it. And so I'm just in great company too, as some of the, with Samira Wiley, Cheyenne Jackson, Billy Porter is the narrator. There's just a bunch of great, talented folks who are, I think, like me, just kind of humbled. Like when you're in it and you're shooting, you're like, oh, that's cool. You leave. And then you see it beautifully edited. And by the way, Chris, Dr. Chris, you'll get a kick out of this. It's really hard to find footage of LGBTQ plus spaces from 1960 because it was illegal. So people were scared, right?
People hid.
So do you want to take a guess as to where we found the interstitial footage of gay men holding hands, walking into a bar, or walking down a street or into a forest?
Where?
In pornography.
Oh, yeah.
We use the non-sexual parts of the pornography because in those films, they did document nightlife, the community, what it looked like.
Porn saving us yet again.
I know. And so it was actually really funny because when I found that out in a group Zoom interview, and the director shared. It was really hard to acquire this footage, but so much of it we pieced together. And I think when you are in it, it gives you a sense of pride for the ancestors who came before us, who we will likely never meet. Some of them are no longer with us. But at least it just increases the fire that we should all have under our butts for making sure that we are advocating for justice for all people and equality for all people, and what that actually looks like.
Bam. Well said. Jay Rodriguez, and the show Equal is on HBO Max. Thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Thank you. And Dr. Chris, if anyone wants to find out anything that's going on in my life, all you have to do is follow me on social media. It's Jai Rodriguez with a G and a Z.
All right.
Blue check mark.
Have a great night.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
And there it is. It's really important to see yourself reflected back. So that's kind of a, call to action for all the producers, filmmakers, and writers. It's just part of mental health. If you need some extra resources, we're going to put some up after the show. Please center and prioritize your mental health. You got not much else without it. We'll be back next week. You can check out all past shows on all the radio.com handles. As always, thank you for hanging out with me, and you all have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your night.